Hello and welcome to Political Adda. I am Mansi Phadke, Deputy Editor with ThePrint, and I have with me our Political Editor DK Singh and Dr. Ajinkya Gaikwad, who is an Assistant Professor in the Department of Politics at Mumbai's SIS College and has done extensive research in the field of the evolution of Hindutva politics in Maharashtra and identity politics. The topic that we will be discussing today is the recent dispute over Vinayak Damodar Savarkar within the Shiv Sena Uddhav Sahib Thackeray faction and the Congress, and how the Eknath Shinde-led Shiv Sena and the Bharatiya Janata Party are attempting to take advantage of the discord with their Savarkar Gaurav Yatra starting today. So let's first go to Dr. Gaikwad. Can you, in a nutshell, talk about what Vinayak Damodar Savarkar means to Maharashtra?
Thank you, first of all, the print team for considering me for this discussion. I'll straight away come to the current discussion of what Savarkar means to Maharashtra and what has led to such a turmoil. Is that we all know that it all began from a statement of Mr. Rahul Gandhi saying, "I'm not Savarkar and I'm Gandhi."
I'm not
But the idea that that has got him into trouble, particularly in Maharashtra, is the level of Savarkar's thought, or probably Savarkar as an ideologue, is celebrated in Maharashtra's politics. Now, this has been something very consistent in Maharashtra's politics, though not in a political sense, but in a socio-political, cultural milieu of Maharashtra that probably was shaping after Turk's nationalism in the 1819, 1900s, and 1910. There was a seeming discontent within the Congress philosophy or against the Congress's moderate philosophy, and there was always an existence of a right wing, not particularly a very defined right wing, but people towards the right, people who were slightly conservative in their political opinions and also aggressive, who were among the pensions of the Turk faction in Maharashtra, which tried to dabble with the Congress politics, but the Gokhale-led camp, which was overtaken by Gandhi later, took the Congress to a very moderate phase of politics, and that's where you see a lag among the Turkites or Turk followers, trying to make spaces for Swaraj, trying to compete with the Congress with subsidiary units like Swaraj Party, etc., etc. But over the years, what happened is there was a series of people, or the series of ex-congressmen who were the aggressive congressmen trying to make their move towards the Hindu Mahasabha of the Savarkar ideology. And later on, when Hindu Mahasabha was not enough to accommodate them, then came the idea of Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangh in the 1924-1925. So Maharashtra has been a very unique proposition for right-wing politics in India. It's when the inconsistencies or maybe some passivity among the Congress was unbearable for certain people, followers of Tira, that led the space for right-wing politics. And Savarkar was one of the prominent ideologues of right-wing politics in Maharashtra.
Dr. Gaikwad, I just remember something. I was reading one book by Niranjan Mukhopadhyay on RSS, and there he mentions this incident. Way back in 1906, Gandhi had gone to London to meet Savarkar, and Savarkar was kind of sauteing prawn. And Gandhi was there to discuss. Gandhi was going to launch a satyagraha in South Africa, and he wanted Savarkar's support. And he was actually also advising Savarkar. You cannot be fighting against the British militarily. I mean, violence is not the way. And both differed. And of course, Gandhi refused to have dinner there because he didn't eat fish. So that's how they parted, and how they over decades, how they grew totally apart ideologically.
Yes, this, also, thank you for bringing that point here, is that it's also a lot of liberal, rational, secular thought that was very much on in the Bombay presidency during the earlier periods of the freedom struggle. That kind of could sustain someone towards the right wing, but a liberal, not a liberal, but then particularly, a rational or a secular person like Savarkar or a modernist like Savarkar to kind of hold ground. So that ideas of dismissive of vegetarianism, declaring that cow is simply a utility and not a god, uh, and meat eating should be a practice that should be celebrated because that adds to valor and bravery, etc., were things that were not taken very well by all the audience. But there were also, points in Maharashtra where there was some level of acceptance to Savarkar's nationality. And of course, people who were not at ease in the Congress with Gandhi at the leadership level were always looking for alternatives. Savarkar could have been an alternative, but it was not the case for him. And due to his long periods in jail, and later on the clemency petitions and the promises that he made, possibly kind of was a lost game. But yes, this man was probably known for his modernist or rational ideas, which were not really uh, accommodated, I would say, by the then leadership of his own side, maybe a more conservative Rashtriya Swayamsevak Sangha and a more Gandhian Congress were dismissive of Savarkar.
So coming to what
So,
you said about his clemency petition, because that's at the root of this entire controversy. What you are
Right.
talking about. I'm not Savarkar. I'm Gandhi. I do not apologize. Gandhi doesn't apologize. So if you can take us back to that petition, because of course there has been a lot of debate over last few years over that petition, and there are various different views about this. What
And
is
then there are also claims that many other prisoners wrote similar petitions in the same format. And I remember the last time that this controversy had come up in November last year, Devendra Fadnavis had also tweeted a similar letter signed by Mahatma Gandhi. So where does the truth lie?
uh, see, these petitions, or maybe clemency petitions as we call it, are not totally untrue. Because, see, one thing we have to really locate here is that uh, there was no hiding from Savarkar's end when it came to the existence of these clemency petitions. So you might come across a lot of literature that is secondary, primary, written by Savarkar or his biographers or people from the Mahasabha, or from the RSS, that clemency petitions were a fact. So most of them kind of prove the fact that such a thing existed and he had written clemency petition. So no denial first. And we go on to the extent of understanding that Savarkar himself really did not shy away from accepting that there were negotiations that he's had with the British. Looking at a more political side of this debate and more, I mean, coming back to that rationality point, that this man wanted to participate in India's politics, was keen on doing that, and looked at these clemency petitions as a negotiation with a colonial ruler to get him out of an arduous, uh, you know, uh, prison trial that he was facing at the Andamans. And it is often very elaborately discussed through his writings that what kind of travails or what kind of problems or situations that he has gone through along with his brother, which absolutely broke the brother, but he did not budge. So he stood high. But then eventually, there was a time that he wanted to seek direct participation and he did not see this ending. So, if you actually could calculate how many years Savarkar was kind of into or landed up in prison, was 14 plus 3 plus 7 in three different cases. But
Right.
then the add up, the total could be much. But then he was in one of the petitions, he has also argued the fact that what is life imprisonment? Is life imprisonment putting the person into imprisonment for their lifetime, or taking away certain years of their productive life and punishing them for the deeds that they have done, etc. So there have been also debates and arguments that he's trying to press upon and impress upon the colonial ruler, that it's time that I need to go out, and he's doing it very skillfully in order to just escape or to deal with the situation. Um, Now, the fact that these clemency petitions have been brought up by several people on several occasions. Uh, uh, Even before Rahul Gandhi, Manishankar Iyer uh, a few years ago, and later on uh, Rahul Gandhi on 3 occasions, and many other Congress leaders have often brought this up. But my idea is, I'm not a fan of right wing politics here particularly, so don't take me wrong on this. But the point is, if history has a context and politics also has a context. During that time, the clemency petition could have been seen as a negotiation that a man who was troubled by his life imprisonment could have done, and there was no better alternative that he had. So I look at it plainly in a political sense and make sense of those petitions as negotiations. It could be any movement that is declared, any strike that is declared and simply called off due to better negotiations or better deals that could be offered by a government. So I look at them as natural politics and nothing unnatural in that.
In today's context, if you can tell us, who owns Savarkar politically, ideologically? Is it Shiv Sena? And when did the BJP start owning him up? Because in Maharashtra,
Yeah, I mean, it's almost paradoxical, considering Savarkar had major differences with the RSS, which have been documented, and also the points that you mentioned earlier, his rationalist, worldview, where he looked at a cow as a useful animal and not as an animal who should be put on a pedestal and worshipped. So how does the BJP then claim Savarkar as its own?
Now, a very important question to be addressed is that BJP is in a run for appropriating people, and Savarkar, they feel that is their very own icon. Uh, but the problem is that we need to understand that there was always an uneasy relationship between the Sangha, the RSS, and the Hindu Mahasabha right from the
Right.
early part of 1920. And it was like people from the Mahasabha joining the Sangha and people from the Sangha coming back to Mahasabha. So it was not a very tidy relationship. And also there are instances where Hedgewar and Savarkar have clashed against each other in terms of the real politic or possibly the solutions or the method in which they conduct their politics. Where the RSS was always convinced by the fact that something to do with the social milieu and something to do with culture is their domain. And maybe direct entry into politics was never really a celebrated idea, or never really a very acceptable idea to the Sangha, at least in the early phases till the 1940s. But it's only after, or during the phase of Quit India and later on, that people in the RSS realize that now Congress is converting itself from a movement to a party. And this party would fight elections and possibly govern India and possibly dominate all structures of society. And that is what led, the RSS to adapt to politics and then sponsor the Bharatiya Jana Sangha under the Shama Prasad Mukherjee to come up in politics and challenge the Congress. Okay. But at the same time, they had a political alternative of the All India Hindu Mahasabha, which was always very interested in electoral politics, though they were not as successful as the counterpart or as the BJS, the Bharatiya Janata Sangha, but they were always there. So why did the RSS not choose the Mahasabha and went along with forming or giving more traction to a fairly new Bharatiya Jana Sangha? Is always a question that researchers have tried to struggle with their answers.
Yes, please.
Yeah, I'm sorry, I just complete this point that, but then the point is, we need to understand that it was difficult to deal with Savarkar. And as DK sir just pointed out in our earlier discussion, where Savarkar's view were very dismissive of things and he was sometimes too radical. So we call him rational now. But again, going back to the context of 1920s, 30s, and 40s, I believe I would have looked at Savarkar as more of a radical person who talks about caste, who talks about uh, cow, who talks about utility of a cow, meat. Okay, all of that is kind of very radical for those people and absurd at times. So to accommodate such a person and his politics into a fairly culturally oriented politics of the RSS was difficult. So for them, if there was a choice between SP Mukherjee and Vinayak Damodar Savarkar, it was always SP Mukherjee. Uh, I believe it's more of a sorted choice that they could have.
So critics also point out this paradox of Shiv Sena, whether it is Uddhav Thackeray faction or now Eknath Shinde faction, the Shiv Sena appropriating Savarkar, because I mean, Prabodhankar had, although Prabodhankar and Savarkar are known to be good friends, but he, in several of his writings, had criticized Savarkar. So that fact is easily glossed over. And another point that critics often make is when Shiv Sena made the switch from Marathi Sons of the Soil Maharashtrian ideology to a more wider Hindutva ideology in the 1980s. At that particular point of time, Savarkar, being a Marathi Hindutva ideologue, was an easy icon to adopt and project. So what do you have to say about that?
Yes, of course, that the idea of Savarkar being Marathi was easy. But the point is what is attractive about Savarkar is the value of Savarkar in terms of becoming a connector or often bridging across various scapes or various classes or various communities or caste-ridden societies of the Hindus. Where one single ideologue who talks about a Hindu Rashtra is always a good deal. And he being Marathi is a cherry on the cake. So it's like easier to do. I'm just reminded of something that I wanted to mention. I just forgot while our discussion was on. That if you come across Swatantravir Savarkar Smarak in Dadar, that is right at the center of Shiv Sena's politics. It's in
next
Dadar.
To the mayor, not the mayor's bungalow anymore, next to the Babasaheb Thackeray Memorial.
Yeah, next to the Babasaheb Thackeray, just in front of Babasaheb Thackerays Memorial. So the area is very interesting. The space in Dadar, there is a Shivaji Park, which kind of created what Shiv Sena is. You have a Chhatrapati Shivaji huge statue. And just next to that, you have a Babasaheb Thackeray Memorial now. And just across the street, you have this Swatantravir Savarkar Smarak in Dadar. One interesting fact that I found out from their website was that the Smarak was inaugurated around 1975, 1980. So the work was started during that time. And interestingly, sir, again going back to our very first earliest question that we were trying to look at, that the BMC was supposed to lease land for this kind of a monument. The BMC then was dominated by the Congress party. A point to be noted. Second, is that Babu Jagjeevan Rao, who's actually a Dalit icon of the Congress party from UP, who was the deputy prime minister and the defense minister, comes down for the Bhumi Puja. At the invitation of Sharad Pawar, a Congress chief minister, and the funding of the project was actively sought by Balasaheb Devras, who's the Sarsanga Chalak of the RSS. This is an interesting social milieu for me. And that's what complicates Maharashtra to a very great extent. That you have a Sarsanga Chalak, you have a Congress chief minister, you have a Dalit icon of the Congress party from the central organization, and you have the BMC as an institution which is held on by the Congress. They're all kind of coming together to make the Swatantravir Savarkar Smarak. So I see it as a very important. So there is no Sena involved here till the 1980s. It's only later on that as Sena consolidates its power in the urban spectre, is that Chhagan Bhujbal as a mayor and Balasaheb Thackeray as a Sena Supremo start dabbling with the politics of Swatantravir Smarak, Savarkar Smarak. Okay, this is one thing. If you talk to the family of Savarkar, the descendants and the legacies of Savarkar, you realize that the current ones who are very actively, speaking to the media, you'll realize that they will always kind of, underline a fact that Savarkar was not an RSS person. They were not really very directly associated with the RSS. So you see all sorts of ways in which they try to estranged or disconnect Savarkar from the RSS and try to glorify the ideas of Mahasabha, Abhinav Bharat, etc. So there has been, a complicated side to it, but then this is a lost cause. Mahasabha is a politically lost cause, and therefore even followers of Savarkar have kind of shifted themselves to a BJP narrative, and that's how you have a very complicated kind of a social milieu which respects Savarkar, but also accepts BJP with all its limitations and all its past histories or complications with Savarkar. So
So
that is interesting.
how do we look at Savarkar Gaurav Yatra? Is it an attempt by BJP and Shinde-Fadnavis to totally appropriate Hindutva, or the space occupied by Uddhav faction, for instance, or Uddhav Sena? Is it like total appropriation of Hindutva? Is it that attempt, or is it to embarrass the other side? What do you
Yeah,
think?
as if to force his hand, basically, to force Uddhav Thakere's hand and make him say something that might cause further fissures in the Mahavikas Aghadi.
See, possibly what the BJP is looking at, is trying to exploit a very polarized narrative that has come with Savarkar, or the row on Savarkar, is that there is one side which is totally demonizing Savarkar, and there is one side which is very celebrating or doing all sorts of venerations of Savarkar. So you have a very polarized narrative. What BJP is trying to do is they are trying to, get whatever traction that Savarkar as a thinker has, or whatever resonance that Savarkar has with the middle classes of Maharashtra. Now, if you really want to look into more details of this, the middle class of Maharashtra, particularly Mumbai, Pune, Kolhapur, and Nagpur, are the ones who might not be great in number, but are the ones who drive the politics of Maharashtra in terms of setting the narrative or spinning the narrative. And if at all you have these people on your side, then it means a lot. And plus, let me bring in the point that I was trying to make earlier on, is that so these are a few habits that I have to bring, some note that I have made. In terms of the ideas that could help the BJP, is that one, the Savarkar has a mass appeal. So he's a person with mass appeal. Second is that the Shiv Sena cadres, both the Eknath Shinde cadre or Eknath Shinde faction and the Uddhav Thackeray faction, would boast of Savarkar's ideology. But if you see the UBT currently, the people who have left the Uddhav Thackeray faction were more aggressive and more hawkish people who celebrated Savarkar. So a lot of that lot has gone to the Eknath Shinde camp. The third is that there is lot of inroads that Savarkar and Hindutva politics has made into certain regions of Maharashtra, particularly the northern Maharashtra, Konkan and Marathwada, where possibilities of Shiv Sena, UBT and Congress coming together would have caused trouble to the BJP. They are not going. That is not going to happen, particularly because if you see Marathwada particularly, there is a background of Namankar riots, and there is always an anti-caste violence angle that is brought in. So and that has kind of helped Shiv Sena to grow leaps and bounds into the areas of Marathwada. So the possibilities of Congress and UBT doing well in certain regions is now not going to happen, because people will be again polarized over this issue. Then a demoralized cadre of UBT, particularly demoralized cadre of UBT, is further demoralized because now in Marathi we call it Sambram. The literal translation could be confusion, but it's not particularly confusion. But these are people who are caught up now, not knowing whether to support people who call Savarkar names or to go with the leadership or do what. So on ground, it is going to be very difficult. And what it allows the BJP to do, the Savarkar Gaurav Yatras, is consolidate on the rhetorical narratives of Hindu nationalism, Hindu militancy, and Hindu valor and bravery, which they are doing in other states also. Now, let's for that matter take up the Tipu Sultan controversy or the Maharana Pratap controversy or certain Dalit icons that are celebrated in the UP in order to break down Jata domination. So all of this is kind of created and helps BJP to consolidate on these historical narratives, however mythical they can be. But at the same time, it also kind of helps them to push back certain criticisms that have come because of bad governance, misadministration, or misgovernance. Let's say the Adani scandal that has just was taking place, and the inflation and the price rise and etc., are not making much of a noise because of this narrative. So the BJP in Maharashtra was looking for such an opportunity, and thankfully Rahul Gandhi has provided them with a great opportunity. So that could be one argument.
We'll take a couple of questions from our YouTube subscribers. Two questions very closely related to each other. So I'm going to read them out together one by one. So we have a question by Himanshu. Why is Rahul Gandhi, without any real precedent, out to defame a historical personality, especially when the person is not as popular outside Maharashtra as far as vote banks are concerned? And the second related question was by Aditya that do you think this personal attack on Savarkar by Rahul Gandhi has any electoral benefit? Or is this kind of a counter-attack which Congress has adopted against the BJP narrative on Nehru?
To answer the first question, here, what I believe is, though Savarkar is much known in circles of Maharashtra, I'm not really ready to believe that he's someone who's not known to the other parts or other regions of India. But what, again, coming back to the points that we have, one of the points that we have discussed, that if Savarkar was someone who talked about Hindu Rashtra and tried to give the ideas of territorial and cultural nationalism, or shape the idea of Hindu nationalism, he will always have the kind of respect in the entire country. Okay, so I believe he is, a fairly known figure, but even if he is not known, the rhetoric of Hindu Rashtra kind of is something that is pan-national. So I believe it's not. For me, it's not. I'm not ready to believe the fact that it will not have implications across India. It will obviously have implications across India. But largely politically, also what you see is that the national models have always been replicated by the state, and the state models are also replicated at the national level. So Maharashtra is one unique, kind of proposition where whenever there was a Congress dominance at the center, we had one, and whenever there was a Congress debacle at the center, we kind of had one. Whenever the UPA was in power, we had a coalition government. When the BJP took over at the center, we again had a BJP dominant government. So Maharashtra generally, as a state, has followed the national sentiment. Okay, so I believe that to believe that it will not have national implications is I'm not agreeable to. Mansi, sir, you wanted? I'm sorry.
I'm going to give a non-academic answer. The reason why he attacked a historical figure which may not give him many votes outside Maharashtra. Within Maharashtra, of course, he will not get any votes by attacking him. My answer would be for the same reason that he decided to invite Medha Patkar to join the Bharat Jodo Yatra when Gujarat election was on. For the same reason that he started talking about, that when I come to Kerala, it's very refreshing because I'm used to a very different type of politics. In Kerala, people believe in debating issues without even bothering about the impact.
How it will sound elsewhere.
Right. Now, the kind of impact Medha Patkar is made in Gujarat, and it's known to everybody. Similarly, here, he did not bother. Last time, as part of the Bharat Jodo Yatra, when he spoke about Savarkar, and Uddhav Thackeray was really in trouble there. And there were strong reactions then also, but he didn't bother. He went on to address a press conference, he justified it. So, again, you have heard after this latest controversy, when Uddhav Thackeray came out very clearly that, well, insult of Savarkar will not be tolerated. There will be cracks in the opposition, in the MVA. And later on, you saw Sanjay Rawat talking to Rahul Gandhi, then you saw Sharad Pawar at the dinner meeting of all the opposition parties. Sharad Pawar basically arguing with Rahul, and Sonia Gandhi and Mallikarjun Kharge that, well, it doesn't help the MVA. You have to stop attacking him. And even then, what we are given to understand is Rahul's response was, we have ideological differences over that. So I don't really see him stopping his attack because he does not look at politics this way. It's not about elections. He has made his politics into an ideological battle where you have the RSS on the one extreme, and him representing just the opposite force, and he is the face of that. So in this ideological battle, he is really not really focusing much on the electoral fallout.
Yeah.
That explains his attacks. There is no big, larger narrative. It's just, I'm saying this because I'm against the RSS. And I'm against Savarkar, and their politics is communal, my politics is secular, their politics is hatred, my politics is love. Whatever electoral fallout it might have, he does not seem to be much concerned about that.
Right. We have another question by Aditya. Do you think the reaction by Uddhav Thackeray is kind of a soft signal given to the BJP that they are ready to mend their differences if the BJP decides to part ways from the Eknath Shinde faction tomorrow for some reason or another? Basically, is it? Yeah.
To answer that question, but my take on this will be, no, it's not going to happen again. This split between Uddhav Thackeray and BJP is for good. They have reached a point where it's not possible for them to come back. And right now, the BJP's strategy is to somehow decimate Uddhav Sena, Uddhav's party. And then what they do with Shinde, that's a matter of another debate. What happens later on? Right now, BJP's thing is, we are going to appropriate the legacy left by Bal Thackeray, and we will finish Uddhav Thackeray's Shiv Sena. So that's not going to happen.
Yeah, fully agree with you. And the final paradox in the paradox of appropriations that we have seen over Savarkar is, what is also very well known is that Indira Gandhi had issued a commemorative stamp, had commissioned a documentary to be made on him. And now you see, it's completely contrary to what the stance that Rahul Gandhi takes on Vinayak Damodar Savarkar. So where does hatred towards Savarkar come from within the Gandhi family and within the Congress? And how do you see Indira Gandhi's actions in that regard?
In fact, other Congress leaders have been very circumspect. They know how popular somebody is. They always look at it from the political prism, from the electoral prism. Rahul is different there. Although these people have always had differences with Savarkar, Indira Gandhi might have done that. But the fact is, see, when Atal Bihari Vajpayee government decided to get Savarkar's portrait in the Central Hall of Parliament, most of the opposition leaders stayed away. In fact, Narendra Modi, if you recall, just after 2 or 3 days after being sworn in as the Prime Minister in 2014, he was in the Central Hall with all his party leaders to pay his tribute. Again, the entire opposition stayed away. So that ideological line is already drawn. But then other leaders are more circumspect or electorally more vigilant that if they say something against Savarkar, it will not work for them in Maharashtra. And outside, he's not that relevant that attacking him pays them any electoral dividend. This is where Rahul is redrawing the line. Yeah, what's your take on this?
Yeah.
Yeah, but I agree with this stand. I also kind of largely agree to your proposition where you said that the earlier Congress leaders were kind of very mindful of the brand of their politics. Here I see what I primarily see is a lot of confusion in terms of understanding the narrative. Equating things and looking at things in the binary is going to be problematic for the future of Congress politics. Is like dividing the political spectrum or looking at it in binaries of right and left or center right and center left is probably not going to work for the long time. Again, if we come back to the ideologue who's in question today, Savarkar, for me it is difficult to whether brand him as a liberal, whether to brand him as a rationalist, whether to brand him as a modernist, or whether to call him conservative. What should I do? So should I have those templates that have been made for academic convenience or for journalistic convenience in terms of writing things or reporting things? Or should the politics be a little innovative from Rahul's side, where the opposition is trying to, bring in much pressure at the center or at a mainstream party at the center, and try to have more regional narratives? I believe it's in sheer confusion, sir, or possibly not getting the real idea of what works in India. It's a mix of appropriation, and it's a mix of liberal, conservative, and other elements of politics that come together to make you a winner. And probably the party in power has fairly got that narrative correctly, which is helping them to sustain in such precarious times also.
Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. That was a very enriching discussion. Thanks a lot, DK sir, for joining us. And Ajinkya, thank you so much for taking out the time. We will be back next week with a new episode. Keep tuning in.